The Long Walk is directed by Francis Lawrence and based on a Stephen King novel of the same name. So the main premise of the movie is that you have everyone in this competition to see who can walk the longest, basically continuously. And then whoever wins, you basically get super, super rich and wealthy, and you also get one wish of your choice, which is sort of this just like arbitrary thing that I guess, you wouldn't be able to do otherwise with all your money. And then if you don't win and you lose and you stop walking, then you get brutally murdered. So that's cool too. So the main two characters you have here are Ray and Pete, played by Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, respectively. I think they both do a pretty great job, and especially David Johnson, I really loved him in this movie. All right, so I know that obviously this book came out like way before The Hunger Games was a thing, and also there's like many other variations on the Hunger Games story, but I love The Hunger Games, and I think it's also probably the most like popular representation of this kind of thing in like modern media, so I think it's really nice to like compare the two. So one thing, I think there's like a lot of comparisons I can make here, but one thing that I thought was really interesting is that in the movie, it's like very explicitly stated that every single person signs up for the Long Walk. Like the characters say, they do not know a single person that does not volunteer for the Long Walk. So of course, this is super different from the Hunger Games, where you do have like some volunteers from, the richer districts and stuff, but by and large, in almost every single district, getting picked for the Hunger Games is like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you ever, right? It's like devastating for you, devastating for your family, devastating for just society as a whole. So I think this is pretty weird, right? Because really the outcome of each is the same. Like same thing in the Hunger Games and then the Long Walk, you get all this wealth. It's kind of implied that you become super famous and become this sort of like pivotal figure in society, right? So like, why is there a difference between, in the Long Walk, everyone wants to do it, and in the Hunger Games, no one wants to do it? So one of the reasons that I think that this sort of makes more sense in the Long Walk versus the Hunger Games is that they really emphasize it as a mental competition. They kind of like explicitly say in the movie, that like whoever wins is going to be the person who, has the strongest mind, the strongest will, stuff like that. So I think this makes it a lot different because, it's like you don't have to be special to win the Long Walk, you just have to want it the most. So, this is a lot different than the Hunger Games, where there's like a lot of technical skills that you have to do, a lot of stuff going on, you have to present yourself really well, versus the Long Walk is totally just about, what is your strength of will, and that's it. And, it's easier to believe that anyone can do it, even though in the end, there's still only one winner. Yeah, I think the other thing is just kind of the messaging around the competition. Like, it kind of seems that like, society was really built, they're using the Long Walk as sort of a way to reform society, because it's like, the Long Walk, winning the Long Walk is sort of the pinnacle, state that you can reach, like that is the kind of person that they're trying to create in their society, is the kind of person that will win the Long Walk, just extreme strength of will, perseverance, stuff like that. Yeah, so this is different from the Hunger Games, where kind of like the thinly veiled message behind the games is that, well, the Capitol still has complete control, and we're gonna kill, a few of you from each district every year without you really being able to do anything about it. So I think this makes sense, and they have reasons for it, but it also kind of starts to fall apart at the end. Like, sort of by the end of the movie, like everyone hates the Long Walk, and they're like openly dissenting against the Long Walk on this big event that's supposed to be nationally televised. And you kind of start to wonder, like why is all of society like still totally on board with this? Why does every single person still volunteer every single year? And it sort of just doesn't make sense. So with that being said, I think that none of that stuff is really the main point of the movie. I would say the main point of the movie is the characters. As I mentioned, you have Ray and Pete who are driving most of the story. And then you also have side characters. So you have Hank and Arthur, who round out the group of musketeers with Ray and Pete. Then you also have Stebbins, Colley, and Gary playing small roles as well. So yeah, I think the cast of characters is really good, and I also think they work really well together. I think all of them are pretty fun or interesting. They all have their own distinct personalities. And I think that overall the group has a really good sense of camaraderie together. And honestly, it's pretty fun to just listen to them shoot the shit, which is good because that's sort of a large part of this movie. There's really a lot of downtime where, people are sort of just walking and nothing's really happening. And all you have to do is listening to these characters, sort of just go back and forth, and it's pretty fun. And I never really felt bored, so I think it's pretty good. So then you have Ray, so he's played by Cooper Hoffman, and I think he does a pretty good job. But really, I sort of just found this character a little boring. I think the biggest thing for me was that his flaws didn't really feel like flaws. They felt more like if you went into an interview and then the interviewer asks you, what's your biggest flaw? And you say, I just care too much. And yeah, his character just doesn't feel very emotionally complex. His story arc doesn't really feel very compelling to me. So yeah, I kind of just don't think his character is very well written. I don't think his arc is very interesting. I don't think there's that much emotional complexity to the character. So overall, Ray was just fine. I wasn't very interested in him. He was sort of just okay. But on the other hand, I really love David Johnson as Pete. His performance really stands out to me. He has a really great screen presence, he has a really great voice, and I think there was a lot of emotional depth to his performance. He also has a lot of great lines. I especially noticed this the second time I watched the movie. Pretty much every good line in the movie was said by Pete. And I think that overall his character is just written much better and is a more interesting character than Ray. I think there's a lot of emotional complexity to his character, and I also think that his arc was much stronger and showed a lot of growth and change within the character. Yeah, but overall, the movie sort of just felt a bit flat to me. I felt like I couldn't really get very invested into the story or any of the characters, especially on my first time viewing. I remember that pretty much, characters would just die one after another, and I would just be like, well, I guess they're dead now, and then, sort of just move on. And I'm not really sure what it was. To be honest, I feel like when I've looked about this movie online, I feel like it's getting just like a ton of praise, a bunch of really good reviews. I have seen a lot of stuff like praising especially David Johnson's performance, which I agree with, but I don't really think it can carry the whole movie. So I don't know, maybe I'll watch some other reviews, see what they say. I also feel sort of ambivalent towards Stephen King as an author, which I'm sure probably affected this. For my final rating, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think it was solid, pretty good, but not that great. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like and subscribe if you want to see more movie reviews. Anyways, peace.